What's up, Lions? For as little as $5 a month, you can help this show to grow, while also getting access to our exclusive Pride content, which includes shows like Conspiracy Corner, Degenerate Gamblers, special interviews, Lions of Liberty roundtables, and much, much more. So check that out. Help us grow at lionsofliberty.com/support.
Welcome to Felony Friday, a presentation of the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, John Odermatt.
Felons, friends, and freedom lovers, welcome back to another edition of Felony Friday, a weekly show right here on the Lions of Liberty podcast. Of course, each and every single Friday, we focus on exposing injustice in this nation's broken criminal justice system. This is one of 3 shows that we have here every single week on Felony Friday. We kick off every week with our Monday show hosted by Mark Clare, our longest running flow, our flagship program where Mark interviews leaders in the liberty movement. He hosts from time to time some roundtable discussions, our very popular libertarians in living rooms drinking liquor being the format for those roundtable shows. Check those out if you haven't yet. Every Wednesday, we have Electric Liberty Land hosted by Brian McWilliams, your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty. Brian is doing a fantastic job with Electric Liberty Land. And of course, Friday, this show, Felony Friday. And as our listeners know, or hopefully do know, as we've been talking about on Facebook, on our Facebook page, trying to get the word out, and in the Lions of Liberty Forum, and different social media, letting you guys know that we did have some trouble last week with our podcast feed. So there is a very good chance that a lot of you did not get my episode last Friday with Adam Kokesh. That was episode 121 of Felony Friday. You can either go to the show notes page at lionsofliberty.com/FF121 or go on wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Stitcher, Overcast, wherever you get it, go back and download that episode because we're not sure if everybody got it. So you might have to go in and grab it yourself. It should be sitting there on the feed. It was a great interview with Adam Kokesh. And also Monday's show with Mark, episode 345. So at lionsofliberty.com/345, his interview, Mark's interview with Anthony Sommerhoff. I think I'm saying that right. I'm probably not. Of the Scottish Liberty podcast. That one too. You guys might have missed that one because of some issues with the feed. So go check that out. Go to the show notes page, wherever you need to get it, iTunes, Stitcher. Download that episode. We don't want you guys to miss any of these phenomenal episodes. And when you're there, be sure, if you haven't, subscribe to this show. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox every single week. And we have made steps. We've made steps in the past few days because we can't have hangups like this. We can't have a couple days go by where we're supposed to be giving you guys content where it doesn't happen. So we didn't get the response that we demand that ultimately is acceptable. It was an unacceptable response from our former podcast host. I won't name who they are, but you guys probably know who they are. Unacceptable. So we've moved podcast hosts, and we're on a much more secure podcasting platform, one that all the biggest people in podcasting use. So we're excited. We're excited for this new venture. We're excited to see how the show grows more rapidly now with a better, more improved podcasting platform. So without further ado, I am sitting right now in a very hot room. It is very warm here in Pittsburgh, recording this at night, but it's still warm. We don't have the air conditioning on yet, so I'm going to get through this intro fast. This is episode 122 of Felony Friday. You'll be able to find the show notes page at lionsofliberty.com/FF122. Let's roll with this show. My guest today on Felony Friday is Farrah Domeka. Farrah is a libertarian who has suffered from some absurd Florida laws. Farrah actually ended up with a felony for traffic offenses. I know that sounds ridiculous, and it is ridiculous, but crazy things happen in Florida. So this is an unbelievable story, and we're going to dig into the details, and Farrah's going to share all of that with you. So Farrah, thank you so much for coming on Felony Friday.
Thank you for having me.
I was introduced to you by a listener of this podcast who had heard about your story, heard about the injustice you suffered from down in Florida, which I think you've now moved from Florida, so you fleed that state, probably in a probably a wise move.
That's right.
But we're definitely going to dig into those details. Before we do that, though, I know you're a libertarian. So, did these the injustice you suffered from in Florida, did that have anything to do with you becoming a libertarian, or were you a libertarian beforehand?
No, I was not a libertarian before. This is a major factor in what led me down the liberty path. So, I'm embarrassed to say this, I was a Democrat.
That's
prior
okay.
to this.
Everyone's got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I was a Republican and I voted for George W. Bush. So I feel like I'm in AA. I got to say that to just get it off my chest. But we're libertarians now, so it's all good.
Yes.
So let's get to the heart of this story, what really happened here. So how many years ago was this first to start?
Okay, I'm 35. The felony happened when I was 22. So what is that, 13 years ago?
Okay, so 13 years ago, you're living in Florida. So what happened? You had traffic offenses. What kind of offenses were they?
The way Florida law is set up, I'm sure you've heard of the 3 strikes you're out or the habitual offender laws. A lot of states have that. Florida has a habitual offender traffic clause where if you are caught doing if you're convicted of a serious traffic offense, like driving on a suspended license, for example, it's 3 strikes. If you get 3 of them in a lifetime, you become a felon. So I drove without a license at 14 or 15 years old and got in trouble for that. And then again at I want to say 18 or 19, I didn't pay a parking ticket on time, and they ran my tags and pulled me over, and I got a ticket for driving on a suspended. And then one more time when I was 22, again for not paying a traffic ticket on time. So that was my 3rd strike, and I became a felon. And I can go into more detail about how complicated that is, but
yeah, we'll get into all those details. I just want to make sure I understand the actual offenses. So the first one, you're 14 years old and you're driving without a license. How did that happen? Was that the first time you'd driven, or had you been driving for a while?
No, I hadn't been driving for a while. I was just kind of bold as a kid, and I borrowed my mom's car to visit a friend while my mom was sleeping, and I brought it back, but my mom was angry with me. So the next morning when she found out, she reported me to the police. So.
Oh man. I have a coworker right now who's having some struggles with her teenage boys, and she said the other day, "I'm just going to call the police on them, and that'll set them straight." I'm like, "No, do not do that. Do not get the police involved. Whatever you do not get the police involved. That's the absolute last resort." But that's common. There's a lot of parents just think, I'll just scare the kid and it'll help. But
no, it does not help. And my mom has apologized. She was told by the officer at the time that, it's a juvenile record. It'll be expunged or erased when she hits 18. And that's not true. It's not true in Florida. I don't know if it is in other states, but not in Florida.
Yeah, I think that is true in most states, but I guess Florida, I don't know why. Do you have any idea why Florida does that, or they're just assholes?
I went into the courthouse to try to have my record sealed or expunged. They told me that if you're adjudicated guilty, or if you plead no contest or guilty and it's a misdemeanor or greater, that it's on your permanent record, that you can get an attorney to file. But if you have more than one arrest ever, even as an adult, that you can't get it expunged. It's permanent. That's what I was told at the courthouse in Pinellas County, Florida. So
craziness. So you had the first instance when you were 14 years old, then you're older and you had a ticket and they ran your plates. You had a suspended license. So what happened? How did you get a suspended license in the first place, I guess?
I didn't pay. I was a single mom working on minimum wage, and they did not pay parking. I got a parking ticket. I went to pick up a friend at a bus terminal, and I parked at the meter, and I was asking someone for change like 5 feet away, and I still got a ticket from the meter person. She wrote me a ticket, and I didn't pay the ticket in time.
So this all comes down to to parking tickets, really.
Yeah, to not putting quarters in a meter on time. Yes, all of it is from either parking or speeding tickets. Yes,
It's unbelievable. Obviously, no victims here. The only victim in this whole situation is you.
Yeah.
Incredibly frustrating. At what point did you end up a felon? You said that it's 3 strikes, so the third time, like what was the process when you did get that third strike?
This was I'm so sorry, it was so many years ago. I was pulled over for, again, driving to work without a license, again for not paying a ticket on time. I was not arrested. I was just given a ticket, and the officer was really nice about it, but he has no choice once he's run my tags too. I just happened to be driving through a bad neighborhood, so I got my tags run. Let's see. I went to court. My public defender said, "Oh, you could do 5 years in prison for this. I highly suggest we, do 5 years offer 5 years of probation." And he scared me. I said, "Okay." He said all that, and then the prosecutor said, "Actually, she's not been in any trouble before. We were just gonna, give her like 10 days of wearing, house arrest, and call it a day." So that's what they did. But in the meantime, of course, it's a felony. And I have attempted to have my rights restored, but in Florida, that's just about impossible.
So would you have, I know you've left Florida, but do you have voting rights in Florida, or are they not even that?
No, nothing.
And obviously, so you can't buy a gun, I guess?
Right, exactly.
Does that follow
Nope.
you to, because now you've moved, does that follow to your new state?
It does. Federal law prohibits any felon in any state to own a weapon, a gun specifically, a firearm, if they have not had their rights restored in the state that they got the felony in. Most states make getting your civil rights back pretty easy. Not easy, but compared to Florida, very easy. Florida is not easy. But yeah, no, I can't vote or own a firearm just about anywhere. I think Maryland and Arizona are 2 states that will allow me to vote.
Oh, I think Pennsylvania will too. I'm pretty sure. I guess maybe depending on the felony. I think that most felons can vote. Anyway, have you had other obstacles put in your way? I mean, has this affected employment, housing, things like that?
Oh, absolutely. I am humiliated every time I have to apply for a job or apply for a home. The housing is probably the worst, to have to look your landlord in the face and explain that you're a felon. People don't like that word. They assume criminal. They assume you've done prison time or that you've hurt somebody badly or something like that. It's not the case for me, but it's embarrassing for me to have to continue to explain that, especially, again, it's nonviolent. It's pretty much victimless. I didn't get any accidents or anything, no one was hurt, but I'm a felon, and it has kept me from getting jobs. I don't even get, if I can't make a face-to-face interview with somebody, I won't be offered the job, period, just because I check the box. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? Yes. I will not even get a call back.
Yeah, I had a couple weeks ago, I had Sarah Brady Wagner on the show, and she was talking about how back when she was in college, she didn't actually sell Adderall to someone else, but she was going to. She had Adderall on her that was not in her prescription bottle. So, and it was a setup. It was a sting. There was an undercover cop there, and she ended up doing some time in jail for that, as crazy as that sounds. But she says, and she works as a nanny mostly, that what's helped her is like when she gets a job interview, that like waiting as long as possible to talk about the felony. Because, you get a rapport with someone and they understand that you're building a relationship, you're a normal person. Then you can say at the end of it, yeah, by the way, when you do my background check, you're going to find this. And I mean, if I was the one interviewing you or interviewing Sarah Brady Wagner, I think my first instinct would be, I mean, are you serious? Is this real? I mean, people actually get felonies for shit like this. But I don't know. I mean, I would think probably if it goes that way and people don't run the record, if people run it first, they might just see felonies and just throw it out. But I mean, that's one of the big reasons that I support, for the most part, I support ban the box. As a libertarian, I don't want to force private companies to do that per se, because it's their company. They can run their company as they wish. But what's your stance on ban the box? Do you think that it should be just because of how the criminal justice system is set up to really foster injustice, that it should be across the board?
I agree with you completely. I think that I believe that if I were a business owner, I should have the right to hire based on whatever criteria I choose. But I don't think it should be regulated. But then I could go on and on about what I don't think should be regulated by the government.
So speaking of that, speaking of what should and shouldn't be regulated by the government, you being a libertarian, how did you find the Libertarian Party? You said that this experience played a role in that. How did that play out?
I didn't know that there was anything beyond the two-party system. A friend of mine who was a libertarian maybe 7 years ago recommended a book by Robert J. Ringer called Restoring the American Dream. So I read that and I agreed with it. It espoused all the things I believed. So I then started getting into Ron Paul and later Mises and so on, and learned about Hayek, and it just kind of snowballed. But initially that was what happened. Is a friend of mine recognized that I was a libertarian at heart. I just didn't know what libertarianism was.
Hey guys, this is Roger Paxton, and if you're fed up with the government running every single aspect of your life, but you're not listening to the Lava Flow podcast yet, then what's wrong with you? Check us out at thelavaflow.com, or just go back to sucking up to the government. The Lava Flow podcast, striking the root every single episode.
This is Chris Spangle, and I am the host of We Are Libertarians, which you can find in iTunes, Google Play, or at wearelibertarians.com. We are a podcast that brings you all of the irreverence that modern politics deserves by examining current events from a libertarian perspective. So please, check us out at wearelibertarians.com.
Hey, Liberty Rockers, this is Johnny Rocket from the Johnny Rocket Launchpad. Each week, I strive to bring you the best guests in talk radio. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad delivers weekly interviews of noteworthy politicians, economists, and activists. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad is bringing the party to the Libertarian Party and launching ideas in your direction. Check it out at johnnyrocketlaunchpad.com or find us on iTunes. Each show is action-packed, explicit, and a lot of fun. So join me at johnnyrocketlaunchpad.com every week for the newest episode. Keep liberty alive and rock and roll.
That's interesting. I mean, most people's stories when they share how they became a libertarian. I mean, to be frank, most people, it's Ron Paul. It's something, at least younger people our age, probably, mid-30s and below. It's something Ron Paul said during a debate or something like that really triggered their thinking and then sent them down the path to start researching it and find a book. But I think it's pretty cool that somebody just gave you a book and you read it. I mean, you were open to the ideas. So, yeah, I would say you were definitely probably already thinking along those lines, I would think.
I was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's that I was espousing the concepts prior to knowing what the word for it was. I was already libertarian. I just didn't know it. I didn't know what to call it. Right
on. So were you small L libertarian then? I mean, have you joined the Libertarian Party? Where do you stand now? Not that it matters.
Yeah, to be honest, I kind of felt so disenfranchised because of the felony thing that I thought I didn't have a voice, or if I had a voice, it was, am I allowed to say shit posting? It's that sort of thing online. Not getting involved, like with my hands, not getting into it. And I've recently learned that I can. So I plan to, but no, I have not been involved at all, other than online a little bit here and there. But I plan to. And as far as my personal politics, I'm a little bit more ANCAP in theory, but in practice, Big L libertarian works fine for me. It's the way It's the way, it's on the road, the same road. It's the next stop on the road.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's plenty of ANCAPs in the Libertarian Party. I just interviewed, so I think your interview is going to run right after Adam Kokesh. And of course, Adam Kokesh is running for president in 2020 on the platform of a peaceful, really acting as a bankruptcy agent, coming in and peacefully closing down the federal government, really taking it apart piece by piece in a peaceful way. So that's amazing that you can be a member of a political party and vote for someone to completely defund the government.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And if I could vote, I would be voting for almost any libertarian candidate possible. I say almost, but we're not going to go there.
You could run for office. You can't vote, but you can run, right?
Somebody said that. I didn't know that. I just learned that maybe yesterday.
Really?
A friend of mine told me that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you
not in Florida. Florida is their law specifically states you can't run for office, but I guess in other states I could, or federally I could.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know most states. I know in Pennsylvania, that's where I live. I'm pretty sure that felons can run for office. I'm sure probably most states you can. But if you really think about it, I mean, voting the way that our former government's set up, it's important. I mean, I think it's a good right to have, obviously. I don't necessarily think it's important to vote on everything. There was a time when I was younger that I was anti-voting, and I thought I was buying into the system and just endorsing this coercive government, which to some degree it is. But at the same time, there's things that are more powerful than voting. I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but having a podcast, you can reach a lot more people than just, registering one vote or starting a YouTube channel or something. Running for office, working on someone's campaign, you can reach more people, knocking on doors, spreading the message that way. Voting, I mean, when's the last election that was decided by one vote? Has there ever been one? So
right.
It's nice to be able to vote, but yeah, I wouldn't let that, dissuade you from participating in politics for sure.
Absolutely. I've been refreshed. This has been a great year for me, and I'm ready to get involved.
Well, that's cool. Based on this entire experience, well, I guess one question I want to ask. So I did bring up before we were talking about my prior interview a couple weeks ago with Sarah Brady Wagner on the Adderall. What kind of reaction, like percentage-wise, when you do have an interview for a job or for buying a house or whatever? Like what percentage of the people have a reaction that, they turn their nose up and say felon, compared to what percentage say, are you kidding me? Like, this happened to you? I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm likable face to face. People, if I have the opportunity to get my foot in the door, people usually like me. So if I get my foot in the door and I have a face to face meeting with someone, I have never had anyone turn me away. But I have had people have reservations or tell me that the only reason that they would rent to me would be that my husband was in the military and has an upstanding record and stuff. That he was the one pulling it through for me. So full disclosure, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I homeschool 6 kids. So I haven't had to apply for a job in a while.
Well, that is a full-time job, homeschooling 6 kids. That's no joke. What curriculum do you use?
We move frequently. I have been I was using a K-12 in Georgia, but at this point I'm not using a curriculum. I'm living in Alabama, so I can pick what I want, and I just kind of cobble together my own things. We just arrived here, and I haven't been in one state for more than a few months for a couple years. So
is a lot of it online? I mean, how much can be done online compared to, I know back in the day, homeschooling was really intensive for the parent. I'm sure it still is, but
it is. I do less online than I used to. Mostly my teenager my high school student, he does his curriculum online, but the younger kids, it's mostly book work. And it is a little difficult because of the age gap. I have to kind of sit with each one of them and pay close attention to what they're doing and work with them individually. And since everybody's a different age, we're doing different curriculum. So different things we're learning. I don't find it to be as hard. It is really hard, but it's not as hard as, to be honest, when my kids were in public school, I feel like the homework they sent home was just as much work as this.
Yeah, I mean, I have one young daughter. She's only 2.5, so she's not in school yet. But when I go to visit my sister, she has 4 kids, and one's in middle school, one's in like 5th grade. And it's insane the amount of work they send home. I mean, you're sending your kid to school, public school, for 8-9 hours, and they come home and they got to do 2 hours of homework. What the hell is the point of that?
Exactly. It doesn't make sense. What are the teachers even doing if they're sending the work home for me to do with them? And also, I don't think children benefit from sitting and looking at paperwork for that many hours a day. I think 7 or 9 hours a day at school is a little much. So then the extra couple hours at home is ridiculous to me. It's enough.
100% agreed. Now, did learning about libertarian ideas, did that get you into homeschooling, or were you homeschooling before that?
Libertarianism is a good fit for me because it fits my personality. I think if libertarianism didn't exist, I would still be doing exactly the things I'm doing and believing the things I believe and acting the way I act. So I think I would have homeschooled regardless, because I hate to say it this way, but I have a distrust of the government and a dislike for being coerced into programs and uniformity that I don't necessarily agree with. And even if I did, I don't like being coerced. So I don't know. I don't think I would have, even if not for my libertarian beliefs, I don't think I would have liked sending my kids to public school. I never did enjoy it. And I didn't like a lot of the things they came home with, things they're learning in school, the inherent historical dishonesty and some of the bad habits they bring home as well from other students.
The thing for me, and I have a couple more years before I got to make a decision on it. And we are lucky where I live in Pittsburgh. I understand that public schools they do have issues, and I have big issues with public schools, especially from, like you were saying, the history they teach. But from at least a science and math standpoint, the public school system where I live is excellent. But, and I do have 5 years before I got to make a decision for my daughter. But I mean, you keep seeing the stuff that they're teaching in colleges. It's like what they used to teach in college when I went to college. The liberal, just shoving all this liberal propaganda down your throat. It's like it's being compressed now down into the high school and middle school and elementary levels. And probably what's happened is a bunch of these teachers who, when I was in college, they were in college at the same time. Now they're out teaching, and this propaganda is now they're the government agents for it, and it's really a vicious thing that's going on with the indoctrination of our youth. And I don't know. I mean, if I would have had to think about this probably 10 years ago, I would say, I was pretty libertarian 10 years ago. I would say, no, I mean, I'll send my kids to public schools. They'll just, I'll just teach them what to avoid and what's wrong and what's the propaganda, and what to believe. But what's the point in doing that? Just so you're not different than other people. I try to challenge myself. Like when I'm making a decision like that, am I doing that because it's the best decision, or is it because, I just don't want to do something radically different? I don't know. It's difficult for sure. I give you credit for taking that on.
Public school is convenient. I'll give you that. I mean, I'm not saying that's what you said, but it is, though. I can see for people who work and single parents and people who don't feel they've got the time or the skills to homeschool, I completely understand. I wish that charter and private schools were more accessible, and I would probably be doing something like that. But it hasn't arisen in my life yet. We'll see. So far, I feel like we've done okay. maybe one day it'll change. Now that I have a high school age student, I'm a little concerned that maybe I need to get a tutor for him so that I don't fail at anything, especially the science and math parts, which aren't my strong suit.
You guys watch YouTube videos, right? You learn everything there? No?
Right. He's already surpassed me in math. It's true, though.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I barely got through math myself when I was in high school. I mean, I'm not going to be able to help my kid with that, I don't think.
Oh, that's another thing, the Common Core math. That's another thing I'm not interested. I know some people really like that, but I don't like when my kid comes home with homework that is so convoluted and difficult that I can't figure it out.
Isn't there like an aspect of that where, like, I understand some of the Common Core where it makes sense, like to break it down. I don't know if you're taking like, 11, or I'm going to do a terrible example here probably. If you're doing like 4 times 44, and so take the 4 times 40 first and then 4 times 4 and add them together. That makes sense. I mean, I would do that in my head, but there's other aspects of it where, like, if you don't show your work properly of that, you don't get credit.
Yeah, I think it was a little more, from what my kids were bringing home when they were in school, it was a little more complicated than that. It ended up being much bigger and more complicated problems, especially through elementary school, that personally, I felt it didn't make any sense. And their dad is an electrical engineer and my dad's a mathematician. So I think I trust their judgment when they say that shit is stupid. Pardon my cussing. I'll stop.
I agree with you. And now it's all right to swear. This is a libertarian podcast, the one that airs before mine every Wednesday, Electric Liberty Land, hosted by Brian McWilliams. There's plenty of cusses on there, so our listeners are very very used to that. But Farrah, it's been great talking with you. Obviously, your story, the injustice that you've suffered from here, nobody should. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's laughable. This stuff that they put you through, and not laughable in a funny way, laughable in a sad way, if that even makes sense. But just in conclusion, looking back on this experience that's happened in your life, what would you have done things differently if you could go back and change things?
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely take responsibility for my bad decisions and know I could have handled things differently. I also feel the punishment doesn't fit the crime, and I can't take it back. But I wish I could undo. I also wish I had the money to A, pay the tickets, and B, maybe get an attorney that could have helped me out at that time. But at that stage in my life, I wasn't financially able to fix it. And now that I'm financially able to fix it, it's too late.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what the system does. And the people that suffer from it the most are the ones who, don't have the means to really fight it.
Absolutely.
And really, a lot of the time, especially at the federal level, even if you have the means to fight it and pay a lawyer, it's probably not even worth it, because if the feds want to get you on some kind of conspiracy offense or drug-related offense, something like that, some sort of nonviolent crime, they're going to get you. It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah, you reminded me of Silk Road when you said that.
Yeah. Ross Ulbricht.
Yep.
Remember that story well. The thing with Ross, and I would love to have the opportunity to interview Ross. I don't even know if it's possible if he can be interviewed from prison. It's probably not. They probably wouldn't allow that to happen. But the thing with him, I mean, a brilliant guy, puts this whole system together on the internet to really make a more peaceful way of selling these illicit drugs, really making society better, a less violent place. And they took him out for that, which is crazy. But at the same time, like yourself, you were saying, for your own experience, you did break the law. The laws aren't just, but you did break them. Same thing with Ross at a maybe a much more egregious level. Those laws aren't just either. Drugs should be legal. Consenting adults should be able to transact and, put whatever they want in their body. But Ross knew what he was getting into, and I've gotten crap from libertarians before for saying, that probably wasn't the smartest thing for him to do because, it was only a matter of time. The feds weren't going to let him get away with that. But
Absolutely.
anyway, so in closing here, do you have any words of advice or wisdom for the Felony Friday audience before I let you go?
You're giving me an opportunity that's I'm going to think of what to say after I'm not here anymore. But no, I don't have anything else to say.
Okay,
Thank you,
fair.
though.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, and I wish you the best of luck in your new home in Alabama, and best of luck homeschooling those 6 kids. I'm sure that's stressful, and great talking with you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much, John.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's interview with Farrah Domeka. Really, just an extreme case of injustice. We've had a couple of these recently where really you hear them, and it's kind of like, what? Your face just kind of makes that weird thing and your lip comes up and you're what? That happens to people? You can get a felony for not paying parking tickets? It's crazy. It's crazy that it happens, but it does. It does happen. And I was happy to have Farrah come on and talk about her experience, but also she spent a good amount of time with us and stayed around to talk about her philosophy of liberty, homeschooling her children. Just a great conversation. It's always good to talk with another libertarian. So I hope you guys enjoyed that today. I'm going to keep this very brief because before recording this conclusion here, I just finished recording with Brian McWilliams and Rico. You guys obviously know Brian and Rico. We record a show called Degenerate Gamblers. That is a bonus, a Pride-only show. And typically, we keep those shows to about 20, 30 minutes, maybe at most. We recorded over an hour-long show before this. So everything is pushed back, and I'm crunched to finish editing Felony Friday on the Thursday night before. Dealing with an injured ankle. I did have ankle surgery last week, so I'm going to keep this very brief so I can finish my recording and get downstairs to the couch to elevate my foot so it stops throbbing and get some ice on it so it feels a little better. And maybe take a few painkillers. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So very brief, just one thing I want to say. I did tell you at the outset, we did switch our podcast hosting platform. We did that for you guys. Our Pride, our Lions of Liberty Pride, is going to remain where it is now, the same setup. Nothing's changing. The way to access that setup will always be, to join the Pride, it's always going to be, you go to lionsofliberty.com/support. Now, we probably will down the road change where our Pride is set up and how the content is pushed out and everything. It will get better. I guarantee you that. I can promise you that. It will get big league better. I promise you that. That's going to happen. It's my little Donald Trump terrible impersonation. Join the Pride. Like I said, if you want to get access to just the bonus content, if you want to hear this phenomenal, and I'm going to say that might be the best bonus podcast we've ever recorded. Definitely the best Degenerate Gamblers. So if you want to hear that, you're going to have to join the Pride. You can get access to that episode and every single bonus episode we've ever recorded. For joining the Pride, lionsliberty.com/support, for joining for just $5 a month. Now, of course, if you want to give us some more money, we are trying to reach some goals. We are trying to go to the Libertarian Party Convention in New Orleans, the Libertarian Party National Convention in New Orleans, which is at the very beginning of July. To do that, we set a goal of getting to $1,500 a month Pride-funded subscriptions. Right now, we're just at about 1,100, a little bit over. So we got a ways to go. So if you want to give us a little more, that would be fantastic. We have a $10, $15, $25, $100 level. What you get goes up incrementally the more you give. It's a novel idea, what you get in return. At that $15 level, one of the most popular levels, people are really enjoying the weekly news links that we send out. Every Monday through Friday, you get an array of news links curated by our own Howie Snowden, split up into different categories from liberty to politics to criminal justice to culture to mainstream media to foreign policy to cryptocurrency, everything. So you will be the most informed person in your friend group, and you will know everything there is to know about everything. And with that, I'm going to leave it at that and go sit on my couch. Thank you guys so much for listening today. This is John Odermatt signing off. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.